morning. So Ollie said he had a lion. He needed a bit of a rest. I think a few other people probably needed that, is what I'm sensing this morning. So glad that you're all here. You're the eager folks who came early enough to want to hear the first speaker. So thank you for being those eager beavers. I'm going to try to, because I'm the first speaker, try to give you a really simple framework. So for all the other speeches you hear over the course of the day, you will remember this one. So this is my speaking heuristic tool to get you to remember what I'm saying. So it's all about three numbers. The number 70, the number 48, and the number 4. 70, 48, and 4. So why 70? 70 is the percentage of high school entrepreneurs who I meet all over the world with junior achievement. 70% of them build businesses which have to do with sustainability and climate change. That is a shocking number. I hope it gives you as much hope as it gives me, because if I see a young student in Indonesia and a young student in Kenya and a young student in the UK and a student in the US all having similar ideas and all being motivated on their own without any prize money or any incentives to create a student business which has to do with addressing climate change and building sustainability into their product from the very beginning, that should give us all hope for the future, that we don't have to rely on governments alone to be able to address one of the world's most intractable problems. So 70 is the first number. The second number is 48. The first one was hope and optimistic. This one's a little bit more pessimistic and negative. 48 represents 48 million jobs that we need to create annually, according to the World Bank, by the year 2050, because we need about just over 1 billion jobs to have to be created for us to have a stable, peaceful, prosperous world. 48 million jobs per year. And that is, frankly, the role of many people in this room who play roles as ecosystem builders, policymakers, people who work for organizations, angel investors who support entrepreneurs to be able to create those jobs. And I'll tell you from personal experience, as somebody who sort of went through my own journey to get there, you don't start life and say, I'm going to be a job creator. That's not necessarily the first part of your mindset you're born with. So how do you actually build this sense with young people to think of themselves as having the capability to think of themselves as a job creator? That's something that we do at Junior Achievement. I know many of you who support the ecosystem of entrepreneurship do this as well. So the reason my talk is about self-efficacy as a superpower is that third number. I talked about 70, 48, and 4. 4 is about how you actually can teach and how you can learn to have self-efficacy. I'm going to ask for how many people actually know the term already, self-efficacy. Could you raise your hand if you already know the term? I figure this is, if there's ever a room I'm talking to, this might be a room where at least a few hands go up. So I'm delighted many hands went up. Self-efficacy is more than self-confidence. It's more than self-belief. It's that unshakable belief in yourself that you're going to be able to get through all the challenges and all the difficulties, all the fundraising gaps, all the product gaps, all the market gaps that go into building a business. And to actually be able to learn that and to teach that is something I'm here to tell you is completely doable and completely affordable. Most people don't know, at scale, we can help young people build that self-belief, that mindset, for between $30 and $100 per kid. And the reason we can do that is there's some very specific things too. And this is where I get very practical for all of you, because this might actually help you or your family or your colleagues to develop that sense of self-belief, that sense of self-efficacy that can get them through all the challenges which are coming ahead. So there's 4 things you do, right? 70, 48, and 4. 4 things you do. Really simple stuff to understand. The first one is experiential learning or learning by doing. So how do you develop the self-belief? Well, obviously, if you've had some experiences where you've actually already done the things, you start to have confidence in yourself and say, I can do it again. So in my case, I went through Junior Achievement when I was young. I moved from India to Canada, and I went through Junior Achievement in junior high school. and I had the title of CEO, and it helped me think of myself totally differently. This immigrant kid who had a bit of a stutter, who came from India and had to make friends, all of a sudden I found myself a leader who started to think of myself as a business person. And that mindset shift from being a CEO of a student business, certainly I attribute to what came later in my life, where I actually was able to start a business and sell it, not just have a chance to sell to Richard Branson, but also get a chance to work for him and do another entrepreneurial venture, and also have some failures and successes along the way. But I would never have been able to think of myself as a CEO in my 20s if I hadn't had that early learning by doing experience in my teens. So I'm just so grateful that Junior Achievement allows us to do this for many, many, many other young people around the world. So learning by doing is number one. Number two is being able to take negative thoughts and convert them into positive thoughts. And this is something, for those of you who have kids, it's a little trick we have. If you use gratitude to build your muscle of being able to take negative things and make them positive, it allows you to build self-efficacy very, very effectively and permanently, because you're building a muscle. Let me give you an example. When I think many of you probably have gratitude journals and ways to show gratitude in various ways, but if you do it in a certain way, it helps you actually turn negative things into positive things. So you start your gratitudes with the words despite or even though. So despite the fact that I'm the first speaker this morning, I have such amazingly enthusiastic people who I'm talking to are all nodding and smiling. So even though it's very hot outside here, we're in this beautiful air-conditioned space, enjoying each other's company. So you take neutral or negative things and you're able to turn them positive. That helps you build a muscle, which allows you, when stuff happens in life, to be able to look for the positive. So number one was learning by doing. Number two is turning negative thoughts into positive thoughts. Number three is surrounding yourself with people who tell you you're going to succeed. Pretty simple, but if you're a young person and your entire community is telling you you're not going to be successful, it's actually very, very challenging to develop self-belief. But if you surround yourself with people who encourage you, who tell you directly that you're going to be successful, everything changes. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a chance to go to Saudi Arabia about 8 or 9 years ago, and the country's really changed since then. But when I went for the first time, I met a young student team of entrepreneurs, all girls, and they were dressed in a niqab, and so I could see their eyes. And I remember kind of watching them present. And this one girl was the chief finance officer of her little student business. And when she was presenting about money and finance and gross margins and how well the business had done, her eyes just lit up. I could see her eyes were just dancing. So I told her afterwards, hey, you seem to have a real interest in economics and finance. Have you thought of studying finance? And she was a bit shocked, and she said, geez, no one's ever said that to her before. And then she sent me this long kind of email on LinkedIn saying nobody had ever encouraged her and complimented her on her interest in business and finance before. So she took it to heart, and she decided to study business and finance. She kept in touch with me. She ended up getting a job at KPMG, her first job after college. And then she ended up doing an MBA, and now she's a young junior executive in Riyadh in a really important role. And I got a chance to see her quite recently on my recent trip to Saudi Arabia. And for me, it was such a great reminder of how one comment from somebody who says they believe in you or see something in you can change the trajectory of a life. It doesn't cost anything, easy to do. And if you take away one thing from my remarks today, whether it's the 70, 48, and 4, or this one lesson, is if you can think of yourself as somebody who's a mentor and a role model for young people, who can encourage them by saying one nice thing to a young person. We're going to have some young people on stage after me. Compliment them afterwards and tell them how great they did. You will have the ability to change a life. And we do that at scale at Junior Achievement, connecting young people to mentors and role models around the world. The fourth thing, right? I told you about the first thing. The fourth thing, which helps you build self-efficacy, is my favorite one, actually, which is role models. Connecting young people to role models allows them to think of themselves differently, and being intentional about the role models. So I'm guessing many of you probably have role models. In fact, many of you have probably achieved success because you've had the ability to turn negative thoughts into positive thoughts. You've had people tell you that you're going to succeed. You've been able to have learning by doing experiences, experiential learning throughout the course of your life. And you probably have also had role models. But many of you may not have been intentional about which role models you picked. Because, for example, I got to meet Richard Branson, and for me, he was an amazing role model. I learned so much from him. But if I were to connect a young girl in Saudi Arabia or in Kenya to Richard Branson and say, look at this great entrepreneur, look at what he's done, it might discourage them from thinking of themselves as entrepreneurs. They'll say, I'm nothing like him. I'm not going to be able to do what he did. I'm not like him. He didn't go to my school. But if we introduce that same person to a young woman who's a successful entrepreneur who went to their school and say, look what they've accomplished, you can too, it changes everything. So being intentional about the role models you pick and being intentional for us at Junior Achievement about the role models we introduce young people to can fundamentally change lives and build a self-efficacy that allows us to ensure, and this is where the through line comes in, ensure that we can build a generation of people who have the mindset to build thriving communities, the skill set and the mindset to think of themselves as job creators, like I probably would never have been able to do unless somebody told me, hey, you're a job creator. You're going to be an entrepreneur one day. You're going to be able to bring economic opportunity to yourself and your families. I'm so proud of the fact that JA Worldwide has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize because we get to bring attention to the connection between peace and prosperity and the economic empowerment of youth. You can't really have peace without prosperity for everyone, and you can't have prosperity for everyone unless young people truly believe they can create opportunity for themselves and their families and their communities. And I'm just so grateful to be able to work for this organization and meet all of you because the ecosystem that we're part of here is doing so much for the world. Those 48 million jobs that we need to create annually by 2050 could not happen without the support system, the policymakers, the ecosystem builders, the entrepreneurs, the angel investors, and others in this room. So thank you. I hope the through line of these three numbers, 70, 48, and 4, are memorable over the course of all the rest of the speakers today. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ashish. Now, stay with me for 1 second. I know we're not really supposed to do this, but can I just say, I thought that was absolutely first class. Would you agree, everybody? That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you. It is a personal question. When you think back to the people who encouraged you, who said you can do it, who gave you that complimentary feedback, who comes back into your mind?
Well, I just met these two wonderful angel investors. I'm looking at them right now. And the first person who wrote me a check, who was not a family member or friend, told me they really believed in me. And I'll never forget, his name's Howard Schwartz. If he's watching today, thank you, Howard. It makes all the difference that first time you tell somebody, I believe in you.
Do you know, I once interviewed a group of school kids on stage, and I said we'd prepped them in advance to describe a life-changing moment. And this one young boy said the life-changing moment for him was doing a school trip to Bloomberg. And I said, but tell me about the life-changing moment. He said, it was a guy called Jim. And I said, well, what did Jim do? He said I was good at maths. That was it.
I love it.
That was it. And it changed his life.
So who is your person, if I could ask you?
My English teacher, Michael Parkinson. Not Sir Michael Parkinson, the TV host. Because at aged 8, he treated me like an adult.
Right.
And he knew I was no less smart than an adult. He didn't talk down to me. He just got me.
So he taught you I guess he taught you to speak English, but not American, is that?
That's right, exactly. Potato, potato, yeah. Well, let's not call the whole thing off. Let's keep the whole thing going. Okay. But let's ask each other this question today. Who encouraged us? Who was there for us when we were doubting ourselves? Who pushed us forward? That's such a cool question. Ashish, thank you for getting us off to an amazing start.
Thanks,
Ashish,
everyone. Have a good day.
Everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.